Scott Kirby got fired by American Airlines in 2016, walked out the door with a severance check and apparently a plan, because almost a decade later, a man American replaced is now trying to buy the entire company. And American said no. But here's the thing. The fact that this conversation happened at all, the fact that it made it all the way to the Oval Office, means aviation will never quite look the same again. Even a deal that's dead on paper can reshape an entire industry while it's still breathing. So let's talk about the merger that wasn't, and why it might still change everything. To understand why this story is so strange, you have to go back to 2016. Scott Kirby wasn't some outsider trying to make a move on American Airlines. He was American Airlines. He'd spent over 2 decades building the airline from the ground up. America West, US Airways, and then the massive merger that created the modern American in 2013. He was president. He was the guy everyone assumed would eventually become CEO. Then, one August morning, he wasn't. The company chose Robert Isom instead. Same day Kirby was out, United Airlines hired him as president. The aviation world is a small place. The people who run these airlines know each other. They've competed, collaborated, and sometimes stabbed each other in the back, professionally speaking. But even by that standard, what happened next was remarkable. Kirby didn't just go to United, he rebuilt it. He rose to CEO in 2020, right in the middle of a pandemic that was destroying the airline industry, and he turned United into the most profitable major carrier in America. While Americans struggled to keep up, while Delta locked down the premium traveler, United's quietly became the benchmark, the best operational performance, the most aggressive international expansion, the clearest strategic vision of any US airline. So by early 2026, Scott Kirby was sitting on top of the most powerful airline in the country, looking across the landscape at a struggling American Airlines, the company that had fired him, and apparently decided the moment was right. In February 2026, Kirby walked into the White House and pitched President Trump on the idea of merging United and American Airlines into a single entity, one airline, the biggest airline on Earth, a national champion, Kirby called it, built to compete with the heavily subsidized carriers coming out of the Gulf and Asia. It didn't leak for almost 2 months. When it did, the aviation world lost its mind. Because the numbers involved here aren't just big, they're historic. United and American are currently the 2 largest airlines in the world by available seat capacity. Together, they flew more passengers last year than any other airline on the planet. A merger would combine their fleets into more than 2,800 aircraft, more than double the size of the next largest carrier. It would serve roughly 405 million passengers a year. It would control somewhere between 35 and 40% of all domestic US airline capacity, and it would be valued somewhere in the range of $35 to $45 billion. To put that in perspective, the 4 biggest airlines in America, United, American, Delta, and Southwest, already control about 80% of all domestic flights. This merger would take that structure and collapse it further, turning 4 players into 3, with one of them being twice the size of anyone else in the room. That's what Kirby was proposing. That's what he took to the White House. Now, why would a US president even listen to this? And why would Kirby think it could actually get approved? The argument Kirby was making wasn't really about domestic convenience, it was about geopolitics. Look at what airlines like Emirates, Qatar Airways, and the major Chinese carriers have been doing over the past decade. They've been expanding aggressively into international routes, many of them with the backing of sovereign wealth funds or state subsidies. American carriers have struggled to match that scale. Kirby's pitch was essentially, give us the size to fight back. Let us build an airline big enough to compete globally, not just domestically. It's actually a clever framing. Instead of saying, let us consolidate to raise prices, he was saying, let us consolidate to win. And the Trump administration, which has been more open to mega deals than any administration in recent memory, reportedly heard him out. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy put it this way: is there room for some mergers in the aviation industry? Yeah, I think there is. If there was a merger between some of the larger airlines, they would have to peel off some of their assets. I'm not going to pre-commit to anything, but I'll certainly look at whatever comes across my desk. That's not a green light, but it's not a door slam either, and in the world of regulatory politics, that's significant.
But then, American Airlines spoke. Robert Isom, the man who took Kirby's old job in 2016, went on record and called the deal bad for customers, bad for the industry, and ultimately bad for American Airlines. The company filed an official statement with the SEC, the most legally serious form of corporate communication, saying it was not engaged and not interested in any discussions regarding a merger with United. That's not a polite no, that's a certified, documented, legally binding no. And here's where it gets interesting, because Kirby, rather than going quiet, went even more public. On April 27, 2026, he issued a statement confirming everything, that he had approached American, that they declined to engage, and that without a willing partner, something this big simply can't get done.
He also published in remarkable detail what the merger would have looked like. More international routes, more economy seats, stronger service to smaller communities, a globally competitive American aviation brand. He laid it all out, not as an active proposal, but almost as a public record. Here's what we could have been. Here's what you said no to. Whether that was strategy, ego, or genuine belief in the vision, probably only Kirby knows. But it was extraordinary for a Fortune 500 CEO to go that public about a rejected deal while the other party was still watching. Now let's talk about why the antitrust case against this deal is genuinely overwhelming, because the legal math here is brutal. Antitrust regulators evaluate mergers using something called the Herfindahl-Hirschman Index, the HHI, which measures market concentration. The higher the number, the more monopolistic the market. Under the merger guidelines used by U.S. regulators, a transaction that pushes a market's HHI above certain thresholds will face automatic scrutiny. Economists who've run the numbers on a United American deal say it fails this test in multiple market definitions simultaneously. Domestic routes, specific city pair markets, and major hubs all fail. The route overlap problem alone is staggering. According to TD Cowen airline analyst Tom Fitzgerald, the merger would require the combined airline to divest operations on approximately 289 routes, routes where United and American are currently the only airline, or one of only two. That's not a few inconvenient overlaps, that's a structural problem. Think about what 289 route divestitures actually means. You'd have to sell off operations, negotiate gate transfers at airports, renegotiate labor agreements, restructure slot allocations at slot-controlled airports like LaGuardia and Reagan National. The operational complexity alone would be a years-long nightmare, and at the end of it, you might end up with a combined airline so surgically carved up that the strategic logic of the deal has been cut out with it. The hub problem is equally acute. United and American both operate major hubs at Chicago O'Hare. Right now, they compete for business travelers flying in and out of one of the busiest airports in the world. A merger collapses that competition entirely. Chicago becomes a single-carrier fortress. The same applies to Los Angeles, New York, and the broader Northeast. William Kovacek at George Washington University said it plainly, "This seems hopeless. The overlaps are too many, the concentration too severe, and no amount of divestitures would actually fix it." George Hay at Cornell was even more direct. "I can't even see the slightest chance that a court would allow it." And that's before you get to the political layer. Even if the Department of Justice somehow cleared it, state attorneys general, particularly in Illinois, given the O'Hare situation, have independent authority to challenge mergers. Foreign regulators in Europe and Asia could block the combined carrier from operating routes into their markets. Senator Elizabeth Warren sent letters demanding answers. Consumer groups mobilized immediately. The word that one analyst used, and it stuck, dead on arrival. So why are we still talking about it? Because even a failed merger attempt at this scale leaves marks on the industry. The ripple effects of this story are already visible, and they are not going away.
First, American Airlines is now publicly and officially a merger target. Robert Isom rejected United, but in the same breath, he hinted that other deals could make sense. A closer alignment with Alaska Airlines, possibly acquiring assets from the bankrupt Spirit Airlines. That's a CEO signaling to the market that his company is thinking about its strategic future. That's not nothing. Second, Delta and Southwest are watching. The big four carriers operate in an ecosystem where each one's strategy affects the others. If United had absorbed American, Delta's dominance in the premium segment and Southwest's low-cost position would have both come under pressure in new ways. Even the discussion of the merger forced both companies to run internal scenarios they might not have otherwise run. Strategic planning happens in response to threats, real or hypothetical. Third, the Trump administration has now signaled publicly that it is open, in principle, to airline consolidation of a magnitude that previous administrations blocked outright. The Biden administration stopped the American JetBlue Northeast Alliance. It blocked JetBlue from acquiring Spirit. The regulatory mood was deeply skeptical of aviation consolidation. That mood has shifted, which means smaller deals, Alaska, Spirit assets, regional carriers, suddenly have a different regulatory environment to operate in than they did 2 years ago. And fourth, Scott Kirby's public vision document, that detailed statement laying out exactly what a combined United American would have done, is now part of the public record. It's a blueprint. Other carriers can read it, investors can read it, regulators can read it, future deal makers can read it. You don't publish something like that and then watch it disappear. Here's what this story is really about, underneath all the deal mechanics and antitrust language. The U.S. airline industry spent decades merging its way from chaos to structure. Dozens of carriers in the deregulation era, narrowing down through the 80s and 90s, collapsing into the big four after the financial crisis. Each merger was justified by the same argument: we need scale to survive. And each merger did produce survivors, just fewer of them, with more pricing power and less competitive pressure at every turn. The question Kirby was really asking isn't just can United buy American, it's whether the consolidation logic that's driven aviation for 40 years has one more cycle left in it, whether the end state of the American airline industry is 3 carriers instead of 4, or 2 instead of 3, whether the gravity pulling these companies together is stronger than the regulatory force trying to keep them apart. Americans said no. The antitrust experts say it was never going to work. The deal is, for now, dead. But the man who pitched it is still running the most profitable airline in the country. The company he tried to buy is still looking for a strategic future, and the administration that heard his pitch is still in office, still open to deals, still defining what too big actually means in 2026. Scott Kirby walked out of American Airlines in 2016 with a severance check and a plan. The plan didn't work, yet. But in this industry, yet is doing a lot of work. The skies haven't changed, but who controls them is still very much an open question.